It's time to turn down the noise and tune into this special edition of News You Can Use. Your host is Dr. Nick, the incrementalist, a longtime innovator exploring incremental changes across various industries that can be applied in healthcare. Combining the powers of observation and real-world experience, Dr. Nick makes the case that innovations in healthcare can be accomplished incrementally, not just by moonshot events. Now, here is Dr. Nick.
In this week's special edition of News You Can Use on Healthcare Now Radio, I sat down again with Adam Russo. He's the CEO and co-founder of the Phia group. And this week, we're focusing on another edition exploring the weirdness of healthcare in the United States. And if you haven't heard of PBMs, then I don't know, you must be sleeping under a rock and not doom scrolling every day. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back on the show again. I'm surprised you brought me back after the last time.
Oh, I think we had so much fun, and it was such a great episode. I'm excited to do this again. So, PBMs, we certainly hear about them. They have a long history. I think they even have a history that, potentially was intended to be good. I mean, that's my read of history, although I was never a good historian. But they seem to have broken bad is the best that I can describe. Maybe for the benefit of the listeners, you could describe briefly what a PBM is and how they came about.
So, first I want to just make a comment about your definition of the healthcare industry in America. You said the word weirdness.
I did.
And there's no better word. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Because it's funny because in our country, people just assume this is how healthcare is supposed to be. And I'm sitting here going, if you brought an alien from out of space and landed him in America and said, okay, you're going to pay $1,000 a month for health insurance, but before we pay a single dollar, you got a $8,000 deductible that you have to meet first. And then we'll start paying the claims. However, there may be some sharing of those expenses, right, as there is with pharmacy claims. An alien would look at you and say, what kind of system is this? And it all goes back to what you mentioned about the PBM world and how the intention was a good one.
Right.
And that's the same thing with all of healthcare, whether it's the No Surprises Act, whatever it might be. I think, healthcare reform, Obamacare, the ACA, all the intentions are good, but people don't think about what the ramifications could be if we put certain things in place.
Right.
So,
and I think, to that point, I would suggest that it's follow the money. When you create incentives, you incentivize behavior, and unless you think through all of the possible variations of how that incents behavior, you end up with potentially bad behavior, right?
All you see is bad behavior.
That's harsh. That's harsh.
Well, when you see the compensation structure set up in a way,
right,
that actually, reward brokers, yep, administrators,
yep,
to have higher charges, not lower costs. This is what happens. So PBM, in case anybody doesn't know, stands for Pharmacy Benefit Management. Okay.
Right.
Now, managing your pharmacy benefits. It doesn't say effective pharmacy management. It's not innovative pharmacy management. It's not pharmacy management that's going to put money back in your pocket. It's just management.
Managing, right.
Managing for whose benefit? And I would argue it's not for the patient.
Right.
So, one of the questions I always have is why do we have nowadays, especially with all the technology, all the access online, AI, etc., why we even have a middleman, which is what a PBM really is. It's a middleman between the patient having the ability to access certain pharmaceuticals,
right,
that their doctor prescribed.
And just, for the benefit of those that haven't done this, if you haven't done this and you have any prescriptions, which I personally do, and you've been to the pharmacy and asked for a repeat prescription or to pick up the prescription, and fell on the floor when you received the bill for it and walked out eventually because you said, there's no way I'm paying thousands of dollars for something that used to cost actually nothing. I had this personal experience. You will then investigate and discover that there is a whole marketplace that can offer you these same drugs at amazingly discounted prices. And so please go on.
No problem at all. So it all starts with your doctor. People assume that when you walk into a doctor's office and they find your ailment, okay, there are a number, typically, it's not like there's one drug that can cure you from this illness. Typically, there's many drugs.
Right.
But that's why pharmacy salespeople exist. If you ever go to a doctor's office and you're sitting in the waiting room for an hour like everyone else, you'll notice once in a while this very attractive person, male or female, will walk in. They'll have some kind of gifts. They'll have flowers for the receptionist at the front desk, and they'll have gifts for the different doctors.
Come bearing gifts.
Always. Why? What is it that they're doing?
It's their good-natured essence. They want to be kind to these people that are doing good work. No?
Maybe there are some like that,
Right.
but they're trying to get the doctor to prescribe their drug that they're selling, their brand.
Yep.
So no different than when you can pick, Advil or Tylenol or Motrin or the generic version. It's the same thing, just for different ailments. So when you go into a doctor's office, people don't realize that when a doctor's prescribing you a drug, if you ask the doctor, and we've done this, what percentage of them actually know what that drug is going to cost you?
Oh, I can't wait. Tell me.
90%. 90%. No idea.
No idea. Yeah.
No idea.
Not surprised. I thought it would be higher than that. I got to be honest.
Well, we found maybe 10% of the doctors that are the good kind, the good-hearted doctors who are trying.
Yeah.
So think about it. The problem starts with the fact that when you walk into a doctor's office, on average, you're seeing that doctor for 7 to 8 minutes. So in that time frame, that doctor has to look at you, talk to you, identify what the ailment is, and then offer you a treatment plan. There's not enough time for that doctor to understand and know what your economic situation is. How much money do you have? I'm going to give you a very basic example, and it ties right into the PBMs. When my oldest daughter was 4, she's now 13. I'll never forget this. I literally almost had a fist fight with the doctor. Okay?
I can imagine.
So my daughter was having a hard time in school, like reading, etc., dyslexia, potentially ADHD. By the way, right now, she's 13. She's thriving. She's an amazing student. So we go into the doctor's office, and they do all this tests. And the doctor sits down with my wife and I, and he goes, we want to prescribe Ritalin for your daughter. And I'm sitting there going, you want to put my daughter on drugs at the age of 4?
4, yeah.
And I turn to him, I go, Doc, I'm sure many of your patients are single moms, working class families with 3 jobs. They don't have the money for tutors. They don't have the money for specialists. They don't have the money for these other types of programs. So when you tell a person, a mother or a father, hey, I got this magic pill, and if your kid takes this magic pill, they will be better, as the first option. I'm sure 90% of people walk out saying, thank you, Doc. We appreciate you. I sat there and said, Doc, you know my financial situation because I've worked with this guy before. You know I can afford tutors. You know I can afford after-school program, whatever it might be. Yet the first instinct you have is to prescribe my child a drug. And that's the first problem, is the oversubscribing of pharmaceuticals in the first place, which is a big reason for this huge burst of pharmaceutical claim costs just shooting through the roof.
Right.
Everyone assumes you watch a commercial, oh, look at that. I could be running through the fields of the daffodils if I take this drug. And that's the problem.
You're conflating a number of issues there. I want to just highlight them for the listeners. So the daffodils is DTC, one of two countries in the world. In the world, New Zealand, I don't understand that. And the US allows direct-to-consumer marketing, which then influences this request.
Right.
And I will say there's a little bit of a chicken and an egg here.
Yes.
For the physicians who, would love to spend the time, but as you point out, don't have the capacity. They're looking for the quick fix. They're incentivized, to get on. They're actually pressured these days to, treat and street, as, it's referenced in the emergency room. And patients have been conditioned to expect something.
Exactly.
And if you don't, and I'm going to be in trouble here, but I'm going to quote my mother-in-law, or outlaw as I like to call them. But she, when hearing that I was unwell, said, "Oh, you should go to the doctor and get a tonic." So this has been going on for a number of years.
A tonic.
Yes, and we did ask, but we didn't get a clear answer as to what that tonic was. So anyway,
I can't even imagine. So this goes right back into what a PBM is supposed to do.
Right.
They're supposed to say, okay, let's manage the drugs that the doctors are prescribing to make sure they're the right drug and make sure it's the most, you would think, the most cost-effective drug.
Well, and appropriate.
And appropriate, but that's not what happens. What many PBMs now do is because the PBMs, and again, it's all tied to who owns them in the first place. Many times it's a parent company that will own a PBM and an insurance company and a brokerage firm. So they are actually incentivized not to be efficient or manage to lower costs, but actually push certain drugs because they get paid more money the higher the charges and the savings potential are. So if I can prescribe you a $10 drug and I get no discount, that PBM has shown you 0% in savings.
Right.
But if I prescribe you a $1,000 drug and that PBM gets it for $200, you've just overspent by $190, but the PBM could show 80% savings.
Looks like a hero. This is so CAFA-esque. This is
as basic. It's as basic as I can explain it to anyone. So you walk into an auto body shop and go, and you have an honest mechanic. What will it cost to fix my brakes? $200.
Right.
A PBM for the auto body shop, that's your manager, would come in and talk to the mechanic and say, "Hey,
how much?
How much?
Yep.
$2,000. I want 50% off. Deal. I just saved you, my friend, 50% on the bill. You've overpaid by $800.
Right.
Basic premise of what is going on. Now, so let's say I decide, you know what? I saw this new PBM. That's, by the way, the number of, I can't even keep track of how many different PBMs there are in existence in this country. Maybe you could,
wait, they're multiplying and replicating? Oh, no.
And each one says something which is amazing to me. They all love to say, we're transparent. Wait, so what does that mean? How is that like some amazing thing? We're transparent about what you're paying, about what we're charging. I'm sitting there going, then are you telling me that you used to be not transparent? Now you're transparent for the first time? But the interesting fact is most administrators, so let's say you have an administrator that processes your claims. They have contracts with a few PBMs. Now, why a few? Remember, every single administrator has to build a data extract with each PBM they choose. That costs money. So they don't want to have data extracts with 20 different PBMs. It'd be a nightmare for them. So they identify one or two that are their selected PBMs. And if you ask the administrator, how'd you pick that one? You'll get a weird look. It's like, what do you mean? If you think about it, many times the same organization owns both.
Yeah, of
so
course.
Obviously they're pushing one PBM over another.
Yeah,
So,
no bias there. Let's be clear.
none. So we actually found a PBM, this is about 10 years ago,
Yep.
that we wanted to use instead of the one that our administrator offered. We figured it was going to save us roughly $4 per employee per month in overall costs,
Right.
just by switching.
Just by switching to a PBM that was independent, that was actually going to work for you as opposed to the insurer. I like it.
We get an email back from the administrator, and they go, hey, look at page 37 of your contract. On page 37, there is a fee. If you want to switch PBMs to your own choosing, they're going to charge $5 per employee per month.
Oh, my God. Was it really? Were those numbers? Is that
real?
Yeah. Wow.
Real. Now, I've seen everything from $2 to $7.
Right. So,
now,
but it was higher than the savings that you were going to accrue.
So what happens then? At that moment, what can I do? Two things. Still switch and lose money.
Yep.
Or, okay, I'm going to switch administrators. You try to switch health insurance companies mid-year.
Yeah, right. You couldn't. Yeah, so you were locked in.
Locked in.
So clearly the failing here, Adam, is that you failed to read that contract in detail and you missed that particular point, right?
I will agree. I will agree. And I should have fired that attorney that worked for us that did. I'm only kidding.
It's shocking that it's buried. And I think this is clearly, we see this over and over again. There is repeated misbehavior. And, to the earlier point, this is incentives working in negative ways to induce behavior. And, you eloquently point this out, and I think this is important, that, you can cast shade over the PBMs and say they're nasty and this and whatever, but they're essentially trying to perform and they want to show that they're delivering value. And if they're not delivering value, you're going to say, well, I don't want to employ you. And, everybody has a survival instinct and, they're trying to do what they think is, I don't want to say the right thing because this doesn't feel the right thing, but, so this is challenging. So, what do you do?
Here's what you do.
Okay.
Here's what you do. So what we've done, and it goes back to what we talked about in our first episode. You mentioned it. You said the pharmacy, the pharmaceuticals, the PBMs, the administrators, the brokers, everyone's incentivized to make themselves more money.
Yep.
So how do you get around that? You incentivize your employees and the patients to push back.
Oh my God, this feels like an HR person making some incredible money here.
So exactly.
If you don't know what I'm referencing, you need to go back and listen to episode 1, where the HR manager was the first to get the incentive and scored big time in terms of finding fraud. Sorry, carry on.
So what we said was, we're going to hire an audit firm. And the audit firm is independent doctors and pharmacists who will look at treatment that a patient was given in their first month. So the first month, they were prescribed, some high-cost drug, right? And they look at it, and what they'll do is they will proactively reach out to the patients and say, hey, you were prescribed this drug. You right now are paying, because it's a branded drug, you're paying, let's say, $100 copay for this drug. Are you aware that there is 3 generic versions available of that drug? Your copay will be waived. So this person's thinking they're paying $100 every month
for this drug. Add whatever, for life potentially.
Right. And instead, you have no copay. Go back to your doctor
and ask
and ask them, Doc, can these 3 drugs work for me instead of the one that you prescribed?
Right.
80% of the time, when they're asked, they say yes. It can be switched. However, what happens is the doctor will often say, but you came in and asked for this drug.
For this drug, right.
And why did they ask for that drug? Because that's the commercial
the
they
DTC.
saw.
Yep.
There you go.
To consumer.
So bottom line is, they will go back and the doctor will... A great example I have recently. A teenager went into the doctor for acne. And they said, can I have a cream for the acne? Okay. Doctor prescribed them a cream. It was a brand. I think the copay was like $250 a month on this
that's
particular
cheap.
plan.
Cheap.
Okay? Yeah, cheap. $250 a month to treat the acne. When the patient went back with the mom to the doctor and said, "Can I use one of these alternatives?" Here's what the doctor said. I couldn't believe it. Doctor said, "Well, you asked for a cream to treat the acne. These are gels." The gels were generic. Right. The cream, but they both do the same thing. Right. They both clear the acne. So by incentivizing your patients and hiring an independent organization, which is plenty of them out there. We use a company called Scripta. There are plenty of them out there. They have no tie-in to the PBM, no tie-in to the administrator, no tie-in to the health insurance carrier, and are just keeping everyone honest. You now have educated your employee population, and unlike my HR director who got that big check one time,
right? They get
many times these people are getting recurring savings every single month that goes into their bank account. Huge.
So I'm just going to say this is highly personal because I went through this very experience. I suffered from acne as a kid, and it sort of seemed to persist. And in fact, for the most part, I've resolved it. Maybe that's old age in these days, but and I had that exact same experience. And I genuinely, the $250 was cheap. It was $750 for me. And in fact, my solution, because this was a long time ago, I became my own compounding pharmacy. And I mixed my clindamycin and benzoyl peroxide together in a little tub or whatever, and got those two ingredients for like $5. You could buy one of them over the counter, the other one wasn't. It's so wrong. And this is, multiply that up. I think that's the thing that really bothers me. Multiply that up, and you're talking... soon you're talking real money, as they say in the politics, trillions of dollars. I'm sure it's millions, for companies.
And it all starts with really simply, here's two examples. I go to the vet. I have two dogs. Okay. I have two dogs, a French bulldog, which, somehow is the most popular breed in the world. I have no idea how. They snore. They have really obscene smells, but they're a great dog. I love her. I love Bella. And I have a corgi. When you go to the vet, what's amazing is you go to the front desk and they go, "Oh, the veterinarian prescribed XYZ for your dog."
Right.
They turn around.
And
they go to the...
Yep.
They literally take it off their shelf and give it to you.
Yep.
How come that doesn't exist in America when you go to the doctor? Why do you have to go? And they know there are at least hundreds of drugs that they know are prescribed every single day, the same drug. Why can't they stock them right in the doctor's office?
God forbid, because that would influence the doctors to behave in inappropriate ways to be able to deliver the drugs, so therefore they would be... Ironically, this used to be... Actually, I think it still is the case in the NHS. And my brother, who's a GP, they had a prescribing pharmacy, but there were so many complex rules for all of the, oh my God, they might do the wrong thing versus, hey, how convenient would that be?
Right. I mean, direct primary care is a great example.
Right.
I always push DPC. I think it's the greatest thing in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
However, in Kentucky, the DP, because we have an office in Louisville, about 100 people that work there. In our Kentucky office, when they go to their direct primary care doctor, the doctor has the generic drugs right in the office and can give them penicillin for free because it costs them nothing.
Yeah,
right? It's
exactly.
pennies a dollar.
Yep.
Yet in Massachusetts, when I go to my DPC doc, he's not allowed to give the drug to me. But in Kentucky, they are. So we have different rules that apply in different states regarding what a DPC doc can do and can't do. I, in Massachusetts, have to then go to Walgreens or CVS or my local pharmacy and pick up that drug. And if anyone thinks that there's not an additional cost to that, you're fooling yourself. You're adding a middleman to the process. I mean, we could talk about this forever, but I know we've run out of time. But folks, just remember, ever since COVID started, the number of people on antidepressants post-COVID skyrocketed. And most people, once they're put on an antidepressant, don't get off them.
Never come off, yeah.
And that's another issue that we have. Overprescribing, and then the process of getting the drugs is convoluted with too many middlemen involved. And there you go.
Unfortunately, as we do each and every week, we've run out of time. Adam, you touched a nerve right at the end, so I feel like we have our next episode. That's the issue of difference of licensing. Look, I get the whole licensing on an international basis, and that's some of that's still economic. But if you think medicine is different in Kentucky as it is to Massachusetts, no, it isn't. I'm sorry. You may have a different accent, but the medicine is the same. What have we learned today? Well, I think I'm going to say we learned the same lesson clearly, which is get your incentives in line, especially with the employees. That seems to be one of the secret sources of the Phia group and Adam's approach to the world, which is if you can align the employees, but give them choice. I mean, this is one of the big issues. Make sure there's appropriate choice. And I would say the other big learning point is, hey, if you get contracts, read them. And if you haven't got time to read them, I'm going to say that's a good use of AI at this point. It's pretty good at summarizing some of these things so we can, and obviously have a good lawyer and all of those things. I'm not, advocating. But as I said, unfortunately, we have run out of time in this week's special edition of News You Can Use with Adam Russo, who is the co-founder and CEO of the Phia Group. Adam, thank you for joining me once again.
It was a pleasure. I guess you're bringing me back again, which is unbelievable. Awesome. Looking forward to it.